Do you want to know all the things that I do not like about living in Norfolk, Virginia? Well, we're talking about all those things today, and we're starting right now. Hey, my name is Sam Sansalone, and I'm a real estate agent in Hampton Roads, Virginia. And if it's your first time to the channel, welcome! Hit the subscribe button and also the bell notification. That will tell you every time I do a new video, and I do them every week about real estate in Hampton Roads. And today we're talking about all the things that I do not like about living in Norfolk, Virginia. Now there's lots of great reasons to live in Norfolk, but there's always negatives, right? So I want to focus on those things today because that will help you get a real good context of what it's like to live here, and it can help you if you're trying to figure out if this is an area that you'd like to move to. We've got several things on our list, and I'll go through them individually, and there are various types of things. I try and cover the gamut of what it's like to live here. Now I spend a lot of my time helping people move into this area as well, so if you have any questions about moving to the area, let me know. I've got my contact information in the description. I'll do whatever I can to help you. But let's get to the things I do not like about living in Norfolk, Virginia. Number one, the flooding. You may have heard a lot about the flooding before, but it is a real thing in certain parts of the city, and it drives me crazy. At first, I wanted to find what flooding means in Norfolk. So people think of flooding oftentimes and they associate different pictures and experiences, and you might see like things on the news talking about bad flooding in different parts of the country, and you see houses that are just flooded out, like water all the way up to the rooftops. That's not really what happens here, really. It's more about the drive time, and the commuting is the thing that's hindered the most with flooding in this area. So especially on the western side of Norfolk, the houses and the areas in this area are closer to sea level. So it doesn't take much to get floodwaters to rise up enough for them to get into the streets. You know, driving through main roads can be treacherous. So like in tropical systems or big storms that come through even in a day, you know, water levels can rise pretty quickly in Norfolk, and so your drive from your house to work might cause you to have to take detours, or if you realize you're too far in, you might get stuck on the roads. So it's more about the travel as much as it is anything else. My wife and I both used to live on the west side of Norfolk, and we always had to account for different intersections when the rain was really bad because those intersections would flood and we have to take detours around. Now number two is a lot of the area feels pretty industrial or commercial. So when you drive through western Norfolk, you don't really feel this. Like you've got places like Ghent, West Ghent, Larchmont, really well developed, just super cool in this section of the city. But if you go to the east side, north side, and often the south and southeast side, it feels totally different. I've mentioned this in my pros and cons of living in Norfolk, Virginia video. I've talked about the west side of Norfolk and everything else, like these two sections. And the everything else part just isn't super exciting. So you drive through a lot of it and you'll see lots of old businesses, lots of like commercial buildings, strip malls, that, you know, they still have businesses in there, but they just need a facelift. And so you're driving around, it just doesn't feel super new, super fresh. You kind of feel that as you're driving through a lot of parts of Norfolk, especially the north side and the east side. Recently, we've had shopping outlets put in on the east side of the city, as well as next to that, an IKEA, which has been great. But a lot of the areas on the east and north side still feel kind of old, feel like they could use some redevelopment. Number three is there is a lot of high crime in some spots in Norfolk. Now, this is not a widespread blanket statement, but there are lots of areas that do have high crime. I'll drop links for the Trulia maps so you can see kind of the color-coded where the higher crime is. But there are some places, central, eastern, and northern sides, just pockets that are pretty high crime, and even so going into the western side too. So you kind of have to be careful and focus on different parts as far as if you want to live somewhere and want to avoid higher crime sections. But I feel like the city struggles with its reputation for this reason. You almost feel like when you're moving into Norfolk, you have to kind of know that you're going to deal with some people's negative opinions about the city that you're moving to. But just know that this is not the way the entire city is, so make sure you do your research. Now the next one is, I wish the downtown was bigger. So downtown Norfolk is my favorite downtown in the whole area. Now there are two main downtowns, Virginia Beach and Norfolk. But this one's the true downtown of this whole Hampton Roads area. That's in one sense saying something because the whole area is over 1 million people, but At the same time, this downtown is not very big. So if you drive through other larger cities in the country, you're gonna see a lot more impressive skylines, for instance. Lots more buildings and things to do in downtown Norfolk. Now, there are some great things to do in downtown Norfolk, don't get me wrong, but there isn't as much as I'd like. And a lot of the things are more focused on performing arts. Now, Waterside is on the south section of downtown, which has an area called Town Point Park, which has bands and festivals out in the field, some restaurants in Waterside, and Nauticus, which is a maritime museum that's just next to it, which is fine. I personally love big cities, and so I've always wanted Norfolk to just develop a little bit more. Now, the next one is school districts. A lot of them are low ranked. If you look on the niche.com rankings, you'll see what I'm talking about. A lot of people that come to this area, if they're looking for school districts, they often will choose Virginia Beach schools or Chesapeake schools over Norfolk. That does not mean that ones in Norfolk are super terrible, but you will see a difference, and a lot of people that do come to Norfolk often will homeschool or go to private school. There are lots of great private schools in Norfolk. Now, the next one I want to specifically talk about, MacArthur Center Mall. MacArthur Center Mall was my favorite mall growing up in the 90s and 2000s. At the time, really state of the art. It was awesome, it was glorious. It was 3 floors. A lot of the more upscale stores were there. The best Apple store was there, a great movie theater. It was like the pulse of Norfolk to me for a long time. And over time, as the fad of an indoor shopping mall seemed to fade, you've started seeing more stores leave MacArthur Center. So now you have a huge building right in the middle of downtown Norfolk that used to be the focus of downtown Norfolk in a lot of ways. Now is becoming a little bit older. It's just losing its luster. I'm kind of wondering if it's going to be able to hang in there over the long term. I'm not so sure yet. The next thing is the arenas and the performing arts centers are also getting aged, and I wish they could start doing some renovations there too. Scope is kind of like that super weird, unique building that is kind of like the staple of Norfolk. And I used to go to see minor league hockey games, the Norfolk Admirals, and at that time the Hampton Roads Admirals play at Scope back in the early 90s. I loved it, and it was a great place to go watch a game or watch a concert. But over time, things get old, and so now, while it looks cool, it looks really unique, it started to really show its wear. In addition to that, Chrysler Hall is another really popular performing arts center. I watched Jerry Seinfeld there a few years ago. I've seen some great Broadway performances there too. Same goes with Harbor Park. This was the minor league baseball team, the Norfolk Tides. This was built in 1993, and at that time I think was probably one of the nicest minor league baseball stadiums in the country. Well, that was 27 years ago, and so now it feels a little bit dated. Waterside was another one of these locations right on the water that needed a facelift, and it got it a few years back. Now the whole place looks totally different and looks like a place that's more inviting and more up to date. Now, next is the tunnel traffic. There are multiple tunnels in and around Norfolk. There's the Hampton Roads Bridge Tunnel, there's the Midtown Tunnel, and then there's the Downtown Tunnel. Now, a couple of these have bridges associated with them as well. The Berkeley Bridge, which connects the downtown Norfolk section over to Portsmouth through the Downtown Tunnel, and the Hampton Roads Bridge Tunnel has the Hampton Roads Bridge, which connects from Norfolk up to the peninsula, Newport News and Hampton. Well, these places back up all the time. Super frustrating, and this is the worst part of the traffic in Norfolk. And because the Berkeley Bridge rises, it's also frustrating, not just because of the tunnel, but because of the drawbridge. So you might be stuck on the bridge for 5, 10, 15 more minutes than you had thought because you're waiting for this bridge to go up, and then you have to still go through the tunnel. So some people in big cities might be laughing at me, the idea that this traffic is that bad. But when you're not expecting it, it can be kind of frustrating to wait an extra 10, 15 minutes. Now the next one is the house styles. Now first of all, I love a lot of the ones in Norfolk. Ghent is awesome. Some of my favorite home designs, colonial style houses, columns, big ceilings, got that 20s feel to it. Go into the western side of Norfolk further, into Larchmont, same kind of thing. I love these houses. And if you go into other parts of Norfolk, there's some great houses too, but there are lots of Cape Cod style houses, which in one sense, I love these because a lot of these houses afford people to be able to move into the city and have a smaller house like 2-bedroom, 1-bath, 3-bedroom, 2-bath, and not be super expensive. But that being said, the reason I'm not a big fan of Cape Cod style houses is because the way the roof lines are set up, they cut into the ceilings on the second floor. So often they'll have 1 or 2 bedrooms downstairs and then 2 bedrooms upstairs. Where those frames cut in are still rooms, and so when you walk upstairs, the ceilings are not fully square. But that's certain style because of the way that the second floor is configured is often the reason why I'm just not a big fan and would try to choose another style if at all possible. Now, I've done a lot of other videos about Norfolk and about the other cities in Hampton Roads. There are a couple of these that you might find interesting to get more context about Norfolk and the Hampton Roads area. So click those right here. You can also subscribe to my channel, and I will see you on the next video.